All right, man. How's it going? That thing that God is creating in your life, that vision, that idea that God is giving you, how's that coming? Are you frustrated? Are you frustrated by what seems to be an unreasonable amount of criticism? Right? Are you surrounded by people that seems to not support you or have no interest in what you're doing? Does it seem like the things that you bring into your life, the people in your life, is making what God is trying to create in your life more difficult? What if I said that's your fault? What if I said that's your fault because you have not protected what God is creating in your life in the way that you should? Maybe what seems to be unreasonable that's happening in your life is because you haven't placed a guard around what God has created in your life. Maybe your protection is too weak. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. The protection for what God is creating in your life. Maybe you need to increase it. Let's talk about it, man. Let's get started. One love. All right, man. I think that we need to increase our protection around the things that God is doing in our lives, right? And I know that's a strange thing, especially nowadays, right? When we share everything, right? Especially on the internet, and social media, right? Discretion can't be pronounced on social media, much less displayed, right? And I get it in a sense, right? I get it that sharing what God is doing in our lives is a display of faith, right? But I think there is still room for protection. I think there is still room for wisdom, right? Wisdom in discretion, wisdom in timing, wisdom in selection of who, where, and how, right? Because you only protect those things that have value, right? You're not going to protect something that is worthless to you, right? And the extent to which you are willing to protect, or the length you will go, what you will do to protect, both are displays of that value, right? You're not going to protect your children the same way that you protect your shoestrings, right? You know what I mean? If a person came to you with a gun and was like, hey, give me those shoestrings, I can imagine you kind of looking at that weird robber like a frog in a new pond and, quietly giving him your shoestrings, yeah? If that same robber with the same gun came to you and said, hey, give me that youngin', I can imagine you at the very least thinking about giving your life for that child, right? Especially if it's the good child, right? Especially that good youngin', right? That one that's going to be rich later and going to give you that pretty plush retirement. You just might give your life for that one, right? So the extent to which you are willing to protect is a reflection of the importance, is a reflection of the value recognized in that thing or person, right? And I think this is the reason why we, we are so frustrated in what God is trying to create in our lives is because we don't recognize the value, because you don't see the fullness of its value. You don't see the fullness of its importance. You tend to be a little willy-nilly with the showing and the allowing people in, the allowing people to know what you're doing, and there's a floodgate open, just letting anything and anyone in on what God is doing in your life. And that produces a bunch of headaches, a bunch of frustrations, and kind of hinders you in your journey to this goal, in your journey to what God is trying to create in your life. The idea that you have about your future, about what you're creating in your life and what you're creating in other people's lives. Where did that idea come from? Is it your idea or is it God's idea? This thing that you are creating, who's actually creating it, right? Are you creating it or is God creating it? And I would think long and hard about the answer to those questions. Because if it's a God creation, if it's a God idea, if it's a God vision, then it becomes more than just a simple idea, simple vision, and simple creation. Because there is no separation between the created and the creator. Every bit of the creation is the creator, because it came out of the creator, right? So the creation is in essence the creator. Every character in your book is essentially you. Not just the characters, everything in your book is you, because it came out of you. It came out of your imagination. Everything we create is in essence us. So if God is creating this in your life, that thing, that person that God is creating in your life carries the very essence of God, because it came out of Him. This isn't your idea, you say. This isn't something you're doing. This is something God is doing. Well, therefore, the creation of God bears His very essence. And everything that bears or contains the essence of God is considered a holy article and deserves increased protection and deserves a denser wall of consideration around it. Let's look at how God protects His essence. Let's use God as an example as to how we should protect His essence by the way He protected or protects His essence. All right, let's go to 2 Samuel, the 6th chapter. 2 Samuel, the 6th chapter, and we're going to read the 6th and 7th verse. 2 Samuel 6 and 6 and 7, and it reads as follows. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him. God smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God. Here you have a gentleman by the name of Uzzah who attempted to protect the ark of God, and was killed for it. He wasn't killed by David. He wasn't killed by one of David's men. He wasn't killed by an angel. He wasn't killed by some stray animal. He wasn't killed by some foreign object that fell from the sky. No, sir, and no, ma'am. Uzzah was killed by God himself. This verse said, God smote him. Right? Why? Because God saw the value in the Ark of God. Now, the Ark of God is known to have the presence of God in it. Right? It is said historically that inside the Ark of God was the Ten Commandments. Inside the Ark of God was Moses' stick, Moses' staff that parted the Red Sea. And those items were valuable in the eyes of God and contained his essence, contained his presence. God placed his presence upon the Ark of God because of those items. And God protected his essence by any means necessary. Now, what Uzzah did was understandable. This verse says that an oxen shook the Ark of God. And Uzzah, understandably, logically, with good intention, attempted to protect the Ark of God. But because God's protection around his essence was so dense that even logic and good intention was not welcome. Why can't we, in the same fashion, express the same discriminatory habits and actions around the Ark of the Covenant that God has placed in our possession? Why couldn't we? Right? What Uzzah did was understandable. It was logical, but it wasn't God's will. It's understandable that you take your artwork down to the flea market to sell it, right? But is it God's will? It's understandable that you would want to bring in a new wife to help you raise, that you love, of course, and also help you raise your children. But is it God's will? These are the questions that will arise and create a dome of protection over something once you recognize its value. You don't have that type of those questions. Is it God's will? Is this the right thing to do? That type of protective questioning doesn't exist in your mind over this thing that God is creating in your life, because you don't see it as valuable as it really is. You see this as your opportunity to be famous. You see this simply as an opportunity to be an entrepreneur. You see this simply as an opportunity for you to be a pastor. But because it is being created by God, everything that a creator creates has his essence in it. And everything that has God's essence in it, bears God's essence, is a holy article and deserves a heightened sense of protection. You don't get to be a part of what I'm creating when what God is creating through me is God himself. You don't get a free sample of my product when my product is a product created by God. When you recognize the essence of God in his creation, a heightened level of protection is created. And you start filtering people and things. This person, even with good intention, may not be worthy enough to help you, may not be in God's will to help you, even though this person may have good intentions. Let's look at another example of how God protected his own essence. All right. Turn with me to John. Turn with me to John, the 20th chapter, and we're going to look at just the 17th verse. I should read more, but just for the sake of time of this video, I'm just going to read the 17th verse. John, the 20th chapter, 17th verse, and it reads as follows. Jesus said unto her, touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascended unto my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. All right. Now, this is Jesus speaking to Mary Magdalene right after his resurrection. Right. And apparently, Mary Magdalene wanted to touch Jesus. And Jesus said, do not touch me. Right? So saying do not touch me was an indication that there was something about Jesus that he was protecting. So much so that he didn't want Mary Magdalene to touch him. Right? Now, his reasoning for not wanting to be touched is found in the fact that he said that I haven't ascended to my Father. And that speaks to two reasonings. Right? Number one, Jesus said, don't touch me because I haven't ascended to my Father. I want to ascend to my Father and present myself to my Father untouched. Don't touch me because I want my Father to see me untouched, unsullied, undefiled. I want to present myself in my ascension to my Father pure. And your touching me will defile me and taint my presentation to my Father. So Jesus was protecting his ascension and presentation to God. That was important to him. So much so he commanded Mary Magdalene, don't touch me. Right? The second reason is that the work wasn't finished. Right? Jesus said, I haven't yet ascended to my Father yet. Right? Jesus had been crucified. He had been buried. He obviously was resurrected. But there was another step that hadn't happened that was important to him that he was protecting. Jesus says, don't touch me. I'm not finished yet. I'm not done yet. The work isn't over. I'm still in process. I'm still doing something here. There are still things that's left undone. Don't touch me. So Jesus, in essence, was protecting an unfinished product, an unfinished work. Stop allowing any and everyone into what you're trying to create, into what God is doing in your life. A lot of the frustration you are experiencing is because you allowed that person in your life. You allowed that thing in your life. You weren't protecting the essence of God in the way that you should. Recognize what God is creating in your life as his essence, as a holy article, and protect it in a way that reflects that. It's precious, it's holy, and it deserves a level of protection unlike anything else in your life. All right, man, I gotta go. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. Protect God's essence in your life. Protect God's holy articles in your life. Protect God's holy articles in the same way that He protected them. Just because it makes sense, just because goodwill is involved, just because they're intimates, it's possibly that's not welcome with the essence of God. All right, man, again, I gotta go. I say it every week. I mean it every week, including this one. My name is Jeff Staten, and this is Pressing Toward the Mark. One love.